Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance to working Rhode Island families. We hope you enjoy this evening's edition.
I'm Tim Byrne, and this is Labor Vision. Today we start a new segment on Rhode Island Building Construction Trades unions and what they're made of. And with us we've got Mike Sabitoni, who is the business manager of Laborers Local 271, as well as the president of the Rhode Island Building Trades Council. And we have Scott Duhamel, who is the secretary-treasurer of the Building Trades Council, as well as the administrative assistant to the general president of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. Guys, thanks for coming today.
Thanks for being here, Timmy.
So what we'd like to do is we just want a brief overview of the Building Trades Council, where it came from, and what you see as its role in the community. So Mike, why don't you give us a review of exactly what the council is all about?
Well, thanks for having us. And the building trades are comprised of 16 different trade unions that make up the Rhode Island Building and Construction Trades Council. Our charter dates back probably close to about 100 years or so. There used to be, back then, different councils in the urban cores of Pawtucket and Newport and Providence, and those were consolidated into one statewide council around 1960 or so. So we represent the building tradesmen and women that continue to construct, maintain, as well as refurbish pretty much any modern piece of infrastructure that you see of any significance in the state of Rhode Island. We've been doing that for well over 100 years.
So you're the president of the council?
I am the president of the council. I'm also the business manager of the Rhode Island Laborers District Council, as well as the business manager of Laborers Local 271. So I wear a couple of hats.
Couple of hats. And what's your role as president?
Well, as president of the building trades, my focus is to coordinate the efforts of the 16 trade unions to promote our organizations along with the signatory contractors that employ our members and try and continue to stimulate the economy and create work opportunities for our members, as well as business opportunities for our employers. So it's political, it's working with the chamber, it's working with politicians, it's working with city councils, it's agencies, wherever there's work to be had, you'll find us. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like a thankless job because it's never over. Because it actually bothers me when I hear people say, well, a project is going to create these temporary construction mm-hmm. jobs. Well, pretty much any job is temporary. I don't see a surgeon do open heart surgery and then quit. He moves on and does another surgery. Well, construction's the same thing. We build something and then we move on and build something else. So frustrating sometimes when we're advocating and lobbying to promote a project or something that'll put our members to work, and then you always get the detractors saying, well, these are only temporary construction mm-hmm. jobs. So that's my main focus, is to continue to pursue, because quite frankly, a vibrant construction economy leads to a vibrant overall economy. Construction is one of the biggest drivers of GDP mm-hmm. When economists and people are looking at how the economy is doing.
Scott,
yes.
You're the secretary-treasurer, so you handle the money, I'm assuming.
Yes.
What exactly do you do? What's your role in the council?
Well, I disseminate the information to the council, which is comprised of 16 different separate crafts, construction crafts, and people often forget the Teamsters are part of our council too. And of course, I keep the little money we have, because we don't have big reams of money, and we try to make that work. And I also act as a backup to Michael, and along with yourself as vice president. We form a team, we meet with developers, we figure out our political strategies, our charitable strategies, and the whole thing's about working collectively. It's no secret that 16 trades together as one whole can be a lot more powerful, influential than it is working separately. So that's really the essence of it.
So it's a team.
It's a team effort.
And that's what I think we need to understand that the Rhode Island Building Trades Council is a team. It's a team effort of these 16 different unions. I want to go back, Mike, you said something interesting about working with the Chamber of Commerce. Anybody who's been around, certainly unions, as well as construction unions, probably understands that there hasn't been probably a less than favorable relationship with the Chamber in the past.
Yeah.
But that seems to be changing. Explain that to us.
Well, I think the building trades were on the forefront of labor management cooperation for the past maybe 20 or 30 years or so. We understood, over the course of time that we needed to be in the same room with business. The people that employ our members are for-profit private businesses. So, I'm actually proud that in the state of Rhode Island we've been able to partner with the chambers, put aside the differences that we have, which aren't very many, to be honest with you. I would probably say that we've probably got 80–85% of things in common, and the other 15%, are works in progress. But the overall economy, the overall construction economy, a modern infrastructure, modern schools, water, sewer, those are all things that are pivotal to successful businesses. So we really partner up and promote, those type of cooperative agendas that are in the best interests of both business and labor. And I think the building trades, not only here in Rhode Island, but across the country, have partnered up with the Chamber, especially on issues like I have just mentioned. And we're really proud of that in Rhode Island.
So that's an interesting point that you brought up. That the council has partnered up with the Chamber here closely, and around the country. Sometimes that would be the case, sometimes it wouldn't. But Scott, in your function as with the International Painters Union, you travel the country quite a bit. Do you see that correlation between the chambers and other building trades unions, or is Rhode Island kind of unique?
In fact, you're right. It's not done out there like we've done it here. In fact, I bring it up when I travel and say I don't understand why you don't work together more often. There's still that dichotomy where the chamber fears working with any union entity, and the union entity, in this case the building trades, thinks of the chamber as the enemy. Like what Michael said, when we probably have 80% of things in common. He mentioned, and he likes to say this all the time, at the end of the day, we don't employ anybody, we dispatch people. And when you explain that to the chamber, as we did here, that our people go to work for, in this case, Rhode Island businesses, small, medium, and large, who really are the face of that chamber. If you can get that message across, and what are we working for together? Infrastructure, to better the state, to create more jobs. I would have to say that it's not being done that well. I've seen pockets, and usually, hate to say it, in the enlightened Northeast, perhaps, in the very enlightened California. But in other places, the chamber sees construction unions as enemies, and the building trade sees the chamber as an enemy.
So it's beneficial. It would seem beneficial to both parties to have a close working relationship. So again, do you think that this relationship is unique with Rhode Island? I think we're way ahead of the curve. And as I said, I have no problem as I go across the country preaching that very thing, that they should do it again. We all know here, perhaps, there had been feelers before, but where we really forged a relationship with the chamber was in our mutual efforts to expand the airport. And I think a couple of things occurred there. They saw that we had something they don't, feet on the street. We also have a visual, men and women who work for a living. And we worked together to get that successfully done. The chamber woke up a little bit, and we woke up a little bit. They have some things we don't have, a lot of money. People in powerful positions, spokespeople for corporations and movers and shakers. So since then, I think Michael and Lori White, the president of the chamber, have co-written a half a dozen editorials together, and we've been successful in most of our endeavors. So to get back to your original question, I think we're way ahead of the curve, and I think our successes beget more success. It's something we proudly continue to do.
Scott mentioned something that I think is something that needs to be addressed, where people look at, or sometimes people use the word business as the enemy. Business is not the enemy. There's good and bad in everything. There's good and bad businesses, there's good and bad no matter what you're looking at. But business is not the enemy. The business are the employers. Now, sitting down and trying to work things out with them is a lot more productive than always just trying to butt heads. And I do think, and I am very proud in Rhode Island that we've been able to do that. Not only with the chambers, but also individual companies as well. If you look around, drive around the state, and I think a lot of businesses didn't realize we built every one of their campuses. So they are our clients, as well as provide the opportunities for the contractors who employ our members. So it's a synergy that has to happen. We have a lot more in common than not.
Well, there's just so much that we want to go over, we want to discuss. We're going to continue this series, obviously, and we want you guys to come back when there are so many things to touch about labor management, our political outlooks and aspects of what we want to do, and the charitable.
And training, and charitable, yes.
I mean, it's these are the hallmarks of what the building trades are all about, and what they have been and what they've done, and we're going to want to continue again in the future. So again, thanks for coming and seeing us today. Is there anything you want to add to us before we go?
Oh, we're looking forward to the next 2 or 3 parts because we're never-ending fountains of wisdom.
Fountains of wisdom.
And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what we'd want to be called in past, but so again, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it, and we'll have you back in the future.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to see you again in the future.
Good evening. My name is Dominic Ponarelli. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 328. Tonight I have the honor of introducing one of tonight's Eagle Award winners, Tim Milia. Tim began his career in the labor movement as a deli clerk at Star Market in Pawtucket, Rhode Island in 1982. Tim moved to Cape Cod in 1984, where he worked as a meat cutter for A&P Supermarkets chain. During those early years, Tim realized and respected the difference between working union versus non-union, and became deeply involved in his local union's activity. He was elected to the local union executive board in 1995. In 1997, Tim was hired as a full-time organizer at Local 328. Tim continued to serve the union in capacity until he was appointed to a union representative position, serving the members directly on the job. In 2006, Tim was promoted to executive assistant to then President Dave Fleming. On September 1st, 2015, Tim became the 12th president of United Food and Commercial Workers Local 328. As president, Tim continued in winning ways of the union by hiring all new team of fresh and hungry organizers who have used their skills to win 7 recent union elections. Tim is resolved to build a union by putting forth resources and manpower it takes to be successful in organizing local. Tim believes wholeheartedly in the concept of members serving members. He believes members' involvement in Local 328 charitable activities are always key to a program's success. Under his direction, our member-centered Christmas toy drive now fills the needs of 923 children for unserved fellow member families. On gift wrapping day, the local is all in a buzz when staff and members filling orders collected by Local 328 stewards. Tim has always played a key role in an outstanding annual golf tournament to benefit Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which has raised over $1 million for leukemia and lymphoma research and development. Tim also continues our member-to-member outreach to serve over 741 Thanksgiving dinners each year to members. Tim has also served as a VP on Massachusetts, Rhode Island, AFL-CIO executive boards, and is on the executive board of the Greater South Mass Central Labor Council. His other board memberships include the Executive Committee of the Cape and Islands Workforce Investment Board, the Rhode Island Institute for Labor Studies and Research, and the Labor and Employment Relations Association. Tim grew up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and lived there for 23 years before moving to Yarmouthport, Massachusetts, where he has lived for over 30 years with his wife, Lori Ann Milia. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to present the Eagle Award to Tim Milia.
Well, thank you. I'm flattered by that overwhelming response. I'm also very flattered for this award. Dominic, thank you. That was a great introduction. I really appreciate that. I would also like to congratulate this evening the other awardees, Gerald Cobley, Linda Katz. Congratulations to both of you as well. I would also like to thank the Institute for this honor, especially George Nee, Bob Delaney, Paul McDonald, Lawrence Petrell, and for considering me for this award. It's also an honor for me to be receiving this award this evening with the president of my international union in attendance, Mark Perrone. 3 weeks ago in Las Vegas, please. 3 weeks ago in Las Vegas, I had the good fortune of being at the UFCW International Convention at which President Perrone, along with his executive committee, was elected to a new 5-year term to lead this great organization. Mark has shown great vision and insight as our international president over the last 3 years. Under Mark's guidance, I am very, very confident that the UFCW will be up for any challenges that we may face in the coming years. The future of the UFCW is in very good hands under the leadership of Mark Perrone. Congratulations, Mark. During that convention, we heard from many great speakers, including Billie Jean King, Captain Sully Sullenberg, the Reverend William Barber, and Colonel Chris Hadfield. I was very impressed by Colonel Chris Hadfield. He's a retired Canadian astronaut who was the first Canadian to walk in space, an engineer and former Royal Canadian Air Force fighter pilot. Colonel Hadfield has flown 2 space shuttle missions and served as commander of the International Space Station. Colonel Hadfield spoke about how he was inspired at a very young age to become an astronaut by seeing Neil Armstrong walk on the moon in 1968. During his presentation, he asked the question, "What decision did you make when you were young that put you where you are today?" So that got me to thinking. Now, my story is not as glamorous or as heroic as Colonel Hadfield's, but it was a decision that I made at the very young age of 16. I was a sophomore in high school and preparing to go out for my high school football team. At the same time, a friend of mine that I grew up with in my neighborhood came up to me and asked me if I'd be interested in working at a meat market at the end of our street. Now, I realized at the time I wasn't going to be able to do both, so I decided, at the time I was 5'6", I weighed about 140 pounds, so that decision was pretty easy. I continued to work at that job all through high school and all through college as well, never realizing about this trade that I was acquiring at the time. After college was over, I needed to get a job, so I went back and I did what I knew best. I cut meat. During that time in the early 1980s, if you wanted to get a job in the supermarket industry, you needed to know somebody, especially for a coveted job as a meat cutter. I landed at a non-union cutting meat packing house in East Providence, Rhode Island. I was making $3.50 an hour. After a couple of years, I had the audacity to go up to the owner and ask him for a raise. After telling me how bad business was and that he needed to speak with his accountant, I was summarily fired. Shortly after that, I received a call from my best friend who had just gotten married and moved to Cape Cod and told me that there was an advertisement in the local newspaper looking A&P Supermarkets was looking for meat cutters. So I immediately went to Cape Cod and I got hired. I went from making $3.50 an hour in a packing house to making $10 an hour working for this union company. I felt like I hit the lottery. I spent 15 years working at the A&P. It was a great company to work for. They provided great wages and benefits. Because of that union job, I was able to afford a home. I had free health insurance, and I had a defined benefit pension plan that was paid for entirely by the company. I also became involved in my union. I attended meetings, I showed up at picket lines, and I got recognized by the local leadership. And in 1995, I was appointed to the local 328 executive board, and then 2 years later, I was hired onto their staff as a union organizer. Now, at the same time I was hired on that staff, the local also hired a new director of organizing, a person that we all know very well in this room. His name was James Riley. Now, Jim would become my new boss, but Jim not only showed me how to become an organizer, Jim showed me how to become a very good trade unionist. And Jim, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your friendship and everything that you taught me over the years. Thank you very much, Jim. My greatest honor came on September 1st of 2015 when I was sworn in as the president of Local 328. I never dreamed when I was 16 years old that I would end up being president of one of the largest trade unions in the state of Rhode Island. But I did not get there alone. There were many people along the way that helped me and guided me so that I had the tools to achieve this position. One person I would like to acknowledge is a past Eagle Award winner, as well as a person who hired me 21 years ago, George Tenian. George saw something in me and gave me a job on staff. George also gave me the opportunity to go farther than I had ever dreamed of. I also would like to acknowledge the former president of Local 328, Dave Fleming, who appointed me as his executive assistant and took me along with him, and allowed me the opportunity to learn the job that I was preparing for at that time to be here today. But I would also like to thank my incredible staff. First and foremost, my secretary-treasurer, Dominic Pontarelli, and my executive assistant, Tom Hutchinson. Thank you guys for always having my back. I would also like to thank the rest of my staff, Lori, Sandra, Chris, Megan, Bob, Matt, Cindy, Carlos, Sam, Mike, Sandra, Gina, Joe, Adon, Bernie, and Dana. Each and every one of these folks works tirelessly every day to make sure our members receive the very, very best representation possible. A former union rep from our local union told me a long time ago, by a gentleman by the name of Papa Wager. He said to me, if you get up every day and remember who it is you work for, you'll never have a problem. And that's exactly what I try to do every day. Now, at the beginning, I spoke about the decision I made when I was 16 years old, taking a job at Shaw's Meat Market, which got me to where I am today. Well, there was another good thing that came out of that decision that I made when I was 16 years old. It was also the place I met my wife. When I was 17 years old, that boss I was working for at the time came up to me and said he had just hired a new young lady and that she went to the same high school as I went to, and he asked me if I knew her. I looked at her and I said, never saw her before in my life. The next week I went back to school, and as I was standing at my locker, I looked 5 lockers down to my right, and there she was standing there. We started dating right after high school. We dated 7 years later, we were married, and as of this month, we've been married 31 years. I would like to thank my wife, Lori Ann, for being my partner on this incredible journey and always being there for me and supporting me. She puts up with a lot with me, working late, being away from the home for work, and is always there for me. Lori, thank you very much, and I love you. Once again, I'd like to thank the Institute for this amazing honor. Thank you very much, and everyone, and have a great evening.
Well done, Timothy Melia. Well done.
Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Brother John. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. My name is John Burns. I serve as a staff representative for Rhode Island Council 94. Over 30 years ago, I started my career as a member of AFSCME, working as a sanitation worker in the city of Central Falls. AFSCME is a union whose history is tied closely to Dr. King, so it's a true pleasure that I'm here to be here today to honor his memory. In Memphis, Tennessee, a group of sanitation workers, members of AFSCME Local 1733, had a long struggle to gain recognition from the city to improve their working conditions, their pay, and their lives. These were people who worked every single day but still couldn't raise themselves out of poverty. Their only hope, and the hope for millions of other families to this day, was to join a union and to gain a voice. On February 1st, 1968, a first thunderstorm forced sanitation workers Ian Cole and Robert Worko to seek shelter in the back of their garbage truck. The storm was so bad that the white sanitation workers have been allowed to go home while the black sanitation workers were forced to stay and finish their routes. Imagine how bad conditions must have been for men to seek shelter in the packer bed of their garbage truck. Among the sanitation workers' grievances that had been ignored were warnings about faulty, outdated equipment on their trucks. Those warnings proved tragically that the day when the truck's compactor kicked on, crushing coal and Walker to death. The coal workers decided they had enough. They voted to strike, with 1,300 men, mostly African American, marching in the streets, braving tear gas and nightsticks under a simple but powerful slogan, "I am a man." Organizers enlisted the help of hundreds of religious leaders, eventually persuading many influential factions within the city to support the workers. Dr. Martin Luther King traveled to Memphis, joining the strikers because he viewed the strike as a reflection of the same values he was fighting for in the Poor People's Campaign. He believed that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. He believed that the needs of African Americans were identical with labor's needs: decent wages, fair working conditions, livable housing, old age security, health and welfare measures, conditions in which families can grow, have education for their children, and respect in the community. Memphis would be Dr. King's last campaign. Less than 24 hours after delivering his famous mountaintop speech at the Mason Temple, he was struck down by an assassin's bullet. A few weeks later, the strike ended with the city accepting most of the sanitation workers' demands. While he made many strides forward as a nation in the 50 years since Dr. King was assassinated, it feels like many of those gains are being rolled back. From our jobs being outsourced and workers losing their pensions and health insurance to immigrants being detained without bond hearings, we are losing many of the things that Dr. King fought for and died. The Supreme Court is set to make a terrible ruling against unions in a case called Janus versus AFSCME. It is a case designed to cripple labor unions, to take away the right of working people to come together and have a strong voice on the job, to level the playing field, at least a little bit. The case is not just Janus versus AFSCME, it's Janus versus all of us. The Supreme Court is looking at overturning 40 years of established labor law, 40 years of precedent that the Supreme Court set with a unanimous ruling in 1977. Now, if this was just a legal case, we would win. But the Supreme Court is a political court. And make no mistake, we are going to lose. It is fitting that we gather here today on the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's death while he was standing up for working people. If we leave here today and simply go home and do nothing, we are not honoring him. We need to honor Dr. King's memory by agitating in our communities, our schools, our workplaces, our houses of worship, at the State House and in the streets. Like the teachers in West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Kentucky, like the students in Florida, we need to fight back. The courts may rule against us, but that won't kill us. The only thing that will kill us is sitting on our butts and doing nothing. Brothers and sisters, let's honor Dr. King the way he wanted us to by agitating and organizing. At AFSCME, we are saying we never quit. When we fight, we win. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.